Next, we, as promised, will be having a conversation with someone who has been very familiar, especially in the Broadway scene. She is the founder and artistic director of Students Life as well as Passport to Broadway. We are so glad to be having Amy Weinstein joining us today. Hello, good evening, Amy. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. So good to see you, Audrey and Uli. And what a great clip you just put up of some spectacular Broadway shows. Although I have to just mention that that was pre-Tonys. The Tonys came out on June 9th. And the two shows that aren't on there that won Best Musical are Maybe Happy Ending, which has largely, mostly, an American Asian cast. It's a brilliant, brilliant original musical, not a revival, and Purpose, which is mostly about it's fiction work about an African American family that won Best Play and Best Musical on the Tonys, and they're doing really well as well. So just a little nod to those fabulous shows as well.
That's great. Thank you so much for the information and recommendation, Amy. So, we heard that you've been to Indonesia several times. Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened when you came to Indonesia and do your student life and passport to Broadway?
Sure. Well, just to give you some context, Uli, I founded Students Live and Passport to Broadway in 2000, and we have traveled around the world before we came to Indonesia, to Guatemala, to China, to, oh my goodness, to Brazil, to Japan, and we have seen an enormous amount of love and appreciation and talent for this very unique, exciting industry. We were invited to come to Indonesia, or actually Indonesia came to us in 2018 here in New York, some very, very talented young students who wanted to up their game and understand the very specific and unique art form of musical theater, specifically on Broadway, the high end, as we like to say, the Olympics of musical theater, learning how to sing, dance, and act simultaneously and tell great stories and dive deeply into characters and modern contemporary music. So we met these wonderful Indonesian students, and they learned very quickly how challenging and difficult it is to achieve that great art form and how much practice and study it takes. But I think they walked away with so much skill sets, so many more skill sets that they took back to Indonesia with them. And then we followed the following year to Indonesia, to your beautiful country, where we met over 100 students who were dying for the opportunity to learn about the profession and understand the industry, both from the performing aspects as well as behind the scenes, as well as the profession and the business of Broadway.
Okay, Amy, for our viewers, the uninitiated, could you probably elaborate a little bit more about what is Students Life and Passport to Broadway?
Sure. So my organizations were founded because I found that Broadway is one of the most popular art forms. I want to, in industries, I want to debunk a little bit of a misconception, both here in the United States and across the world, that Broadway is a niche market, that it's a niche industry only available to sort of elite audiences, and that is an artist. And that's not the case. I think if I can just quote a couple quick statistics, I think there's 11 million Broadway-themed playlists on Spotify right now. And if I'm correct, Wicked, the movie musical, has shattered all streaming records. I think if I was to use, I think it was the biggest movie on PVOD on day one with sales of 26 million. And also it was #1 across all streamers and the biggest pay one film ever in the first 7 days. So, and Hamilton, of course, on Disney has been seen more on the streaming platform than even people who have the opportunity to see it live on tour and in New York. So there is an enormous hunger for Broadway and access. And I found that it would be very important not just to provide that access for young aspiring artists, but to develop an ecosystem for audiences who really weren't able to come to Broadway for one reason, and that was because the ticket sales were so high, and they still are. It's hard to put on a Broadway show these days. It costs approximately 17 to 25 million to produce a Broadway musical these days. That's just the production costs. That's not the weekly operating costs. And so to make that revenue back, the ticket prices have to be quite high. So I founded my company to not just provide discounts for artists who wanted to experience this, but to provide education, to provide an audience that would understand what they were seeing before they came to see the show and therefore appreciate it more and want to come back. And many of those audiences were young artists aspiring from all over the world. And then we traveled across the world for folks who couldn't come to New York to take our training program to help young people understand, again, the challenges and the unique qualities that are needed to make it on Broadway. You know, it's not just about talent. It's actually about dedication. It's about training. It's about perseverance. And it's about talent. So we wanted to provide those insights and those tips to young people who were, again, not having that opportunity, especially outside of the United States, who don't have as many training opportunities as we do here at our great universities and colleges with masters in the fine arts, in musical theater. And that's why I founded my companies.
Mm. And it's definitely very impactful, Amy, as you said before, that this is not just a niche aspect of of our arts, but that this is very important to bring this to the world as well. Can we know what is the main catalyst or inspiration of why you decide to globalize this in the first place? I mean, sometimes I know that when people are very involved in any kinds of industries, you're in the world and you know everything about it, it's easy for some people to just keep to themselves. But you have made this,
Yes.
this decision, a very important decision to bring this to many different countries around the world. And not only countries, it's also cultures, right? Because I'm sure that every different place has its own differences in terms of how they approach things. And yet you still decide to create something so beautiful so many people can experience this as well. What is that catalyst moment that pushed you to eventually make this decision?
Oh, Audrey, that's such a great question. And you're absolutely 100% right. One of the things that I loved and that I missed about Broadway is diversity. And for a long time, Broadway wasn't, again, not just for the audiences, but giving artists of diverse colors and races and religions and nationalities an opportunity to be seen and represented in the shows that were being written and the stories that were being told. Actually, the pandemic really stopped that because we really had to sort of refigure how we were going to reach the world when everything shut down. But I sort of had already desired to do that before the pandemic. And I think diversity and access and young people's opportunity is one of the most important things to me. My parents gave me the opportunity to go to great plays and musical theater in my youth, and I am shocked and astounded by how many young people around the world have never actually seen a Broadway play or musical, but they want to, and families as well. So I traveled internationally to provide this access and brought in some top level faculty to my organization. One of them is the head of the MFA department at San Diego State University in musical theater, Stephen Brodebeck. I have amazing musical directors who work on Broadway, who we work very, very hard in advance to create unique programs that don't just teach about what's happening with the shows and the styles of the choreographers and the composers on Broadway, but who tie in to the unique cultures, as you said, Audrey, that we go to. So it's my job not just to say, well, learn this no matter where you're from. It's my job to understand the cultures, the language, the differences in the people that we're meeting from across the world and make it relevant to them and make them feel that this is accessible, which it is. And I think nowadays, fortunately, as you see with Maybe Happy Ending, Broadway is opening up to a wider range of nationalities, of countries, of global citizens, because they know that there's a great desire across the world. And hopefully, I've been a little bit of a part of developing that love and that interest through our global work across the world. But you're right, Audrey. Good point.
Wow, that is so amazing, Amy, to have the chance to travel around the world and bring Broadway to the world as well. What are some interesting experiences that you had with people around the world about Broadway? And would you mind sharing it with us?
Of course, of course. Well, we've had a great time. I've gotten a lot of miles on my Delta American Express card through all my travels with the company. So now I can travel around the world for free, maybe. But one of the great things that I have seen is the desire in international students, even more so than in American students. You know, as Audrey said, when you have access and you're born into access and you have the opportunity to be a part of this industry, which was created here in the United States, Broadway, you take it for granted sometimes. It's like for people who live by the ocean. They don't go into the ocean all the time because they get used to having it in their backyard. Well, my experience traveling around the world was the hunger and the passion, the openness and the desire for these aspiring artists who were very talented in their own right. We met some extremely well-known artists in Indonesia who were already stars in your country, but who wanted to know the unique skills that it requires to make it in the Broadway community or on the West End. And some of those students have gone on to perform. Actually, two of the students that we taught are performing on the West End right now from Indonesia. And we also and they went, let me just make sure this is very transparent. They understood that it wasn't just our training program that was going to give them that skill set. They went on to a 4-year program, a great universities in London where they studied and then took their studies further. So I think the unique thing that I see is the love, the passion, the cultures that are hungry for this access. And that's why I think I mentioned to Audrey that during the pandemic, I decided, even though we've reached about 300 to 400,000 students and aspiring artists from all over the world, I thought it was important to make this even more accessible. And so we created a television show that right now we're speaking with networks about, hoping to present around the globe that will really give insight and access to the steps that it takes to make it on Broadway. And that, to me, is one of the most important things, to have authentic training in this industry and to understand it's not easy, but it's achievable if you dream and you want to be a part of it. So.
That's incredible, Amy. And if you can please give us a little bit of a taste of the television show you were just telling us about, what are some of the most important and needed qualities that Broadway performers must have? I mean, you mentioned now that we have 2 Indonesians in the West End, your students. I mean, what a milestone indeed. And I'm sure that going there needed, you know, some grit, some perseverance, and of course, it wasn't without its own challenges. So if you can tell us a little bit, give us a little bit of an access of what does it take to be a true Broadway performer?
Yes, well, to be frank, Audrey and Uli, again, I want to emphasize that our program is a short program, our education training program, and it's not enough just to do our program. The people that are making it on Broadway are training and working either in their own vocal, dance, acting classes every day, even when they're on Broadway, or they've come from a university where they majored in this art form. One of the things that I think is so important that we also have in our television show is it's not just the performance part of being a performer and making it. It's not just the acting and the singing and the dancing, which is challenging and hard to put all together and make authentic for a Broadway audience, which is a very, very critical audience. But it's the business of Broadway. It's understanding how to network. It's understanding how to audition. It's understanding how to market oneself. It's understanding how to sell a show. It's understanding how the producers are talking, and that you understand that business makes the people behind the scenes want to work with an artist because they're more informed and they're more well-rounded. So if all you can do is come into a room and audition with a performance, you really can't go much further in building your career, because just because you make it in a Broadway show doesn't mean that's your lifelong career. That Broadway show can close, as a couple of our shows unfortunately are closing right now, before they've even sort of opened. They just opened and they're just closing because they're so expensive to attend. And so they'll go out on tour, which is great. They're going to go out on tour across the country and hopefully globally. But I think one of the things that our Broadway actor has to understand is you're constantly selling yourself and marketing and understanding the business end of the business. How do you talk to people? How do you make relationships? How do you build a network? And how do you build your career? And I think that's one of the things that I see lacking in a lot of students, not just internationally, but students here in the United States who want to make a career on Broadway.
Wow, what an absolute gem of information. Thank you, Amy. As Audrey mentioned earlier, perseverance and grit is something that is absolutely needed for a performer to be successful. Now, the musical industry in Indonesia is currently developing. It's beginning to be a boom at the moment. What are the misconceptions about musicals or Broadway that you sometimes hear from people all around the world about the industry?
That's a great question also. I'm telling you, your questions are excellent, both of you, Uli and Audrey. One of the misconceptions that I've seen since I left Indonesia, I do see an enormous passion for creating theater production companies from young people on their own. I see more licensing of musicals from Broadway to perform in some of the big centers in Jakarta. And that's phenomenal. That means that they're figuring out a way to make it a business and to hopefully make a career in your own country, not just have to travel to New York to make a career. So my hope is that the ecosystem is building in countries. It's already quite high in South Korea. It's quite high in Japan. Obviously, it's quite high in the UK because of the West End access, but Indonesia is really up and coming more and more. But one of the misconceptions, I think, is that young people or artists don't understand that who is training them sometimes. Is this really an authentic Broadway artist? Is it somebody who's been in the industry, who can also teach and help develop young artists? Is it somebody who knows how to live and breathe in the industry? And so I've always cautioned young people, especially in Indonesia, that you need to understand who you're training with, who the organization is, what their background is, and investigate and research, because this is a very high-end, specific industry. It's not niche, but it requires an enormous amount of, as I said, Olympian skills to be able to make it if that's your dream. Let me also just say very quickly that just because Broadway is the high end of musical theater and was created here in the United States, we have 50 Broadway theaters, 20 blocks from where my office is. That's not the only place that you can be successful in musical theater. There are amazing regional productions. Off-Broadway has amazing productions. Touring productions around the globe are amazing. So Broadway and that level is becoming more globalized, but you still have to be very careful that you are, if you're interested in pursuing a serious career, that you're studying with some of the top people at the high-end level so that you're getting the best training possible to be the most successful and informed possible.
Well, and that's some really great advice, especially for us here in Indonesia and around the world who truly want to pursue this career and have decided to, master this amazing craft. And Amy, just a final question. What are some things that we should be looking forward to, especially coming from Students' Lives and Passport to Broadway? Are you coming to Indonesia anytime soon, or any other collaborations or big projects that we truly should keep an eye on, especially in the next coming years?
So, I truly hope I come back to Indonesia, Audrey. It was one of the most, not only a beautiful country because of your topography and the wide range of diverse cultures and religions and people in this enormous country, but it also, I found that the citizens of your country really appreciate great art and music. I know we talked a little bit about the fact that they don't have as much access to see live theater, but inherently there is a passion and a desire for great music, creativity, and expression through at least dance and singing. And so it would be my great desire to come back to Indonesia with our training program, but perhaps more importantly, I hope that our television show is going to be produced on a national and international global level. And when that happens, I'm hopeful that some of the diverse artists that I met around the world will have the opportunity to audition for that show and be a part of that television series so that we can expose more citizens across the world to the great talent in Indonesia as well as in other countries. So let's, fingers crossed, the show gets on the air. Fingers crossed that we can come back to Indonesia soon. And I will most definitely keep you posted if we do. And of course, Audrey, we're going to have you audition for us if we come to Indonesia. So you'll have to get your tap shoes on and get ready.
Well, that would be an honor of mine. Thank you, Amy. And also, as both performers, Uli and I will be very, very glad to look forward to more collaboration.
It would be an honor for us. So for our viewers who want to know more about your organization, are there social media handles or website that you can share with us this morning?
Yes, thank you so much. And Uli, yes, I hear you're an amazing performer, and I can't wait to see what you do as well. Please, if you can go to our website, which is passporttobroadway.com, our Instagram, which is Passport to Broadway Worldwide, our other website, which is studentslive.net, which can lead you to both Passport to Broadway and Students Live programs that we do Broadway workshops for year-round here in New York, and our X accounts, not our Twitter, our X accounts of the same names, which are Passport to Broadway, Students Live, and of course, you can always reach out. We'll send our emails, info@studentslive.net, to receive direct personal more information from myself and my staff.
Well, thank you again, Amy. This has been such a wonderful conversation this morning. What a treat. Again, for our viewers, those are the informations that you need. Please reach out to Students Life as well as Passport to Broadway. Founder and artistic director of Students Lives and Passport to Broadway, Amy Weinstein. This has truly been a joy. Thank you so much for the great chat this morning.
Thank you, Amy. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you both. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.